And I think we're going to start with Larry with his first 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Larry Felton. I'm seeking my 3rd term on the Mehlville Board of Education. First, I want to thank Mr. Wolf for setting this up and Mrs. Weber for serving as moderator. She does a great job, and she does a good job of keeping us on our toes. I've had the privilege of serving this district for 20 years as a parent and a volunteer. But during the last 6 years serving on the board, I think I've gotten a much better idea of what it really takes to drive academic achievement, what it also takes to deal with the financial highs and lows we've had over these 6 years. Luckily, more highs than lows. But I think I've gained a much greater appreciation for how complicated a school district really is to govern, to manage, and to administer. The Mehlville School District's in a lot better shape now than it was 6 years ago. We're sounder academically, we're sounder financially, we have better operations, we have stronger character in our schools. I could sit here and probably take a lot of time to talk about all the achievements of what we've done in the last 3 years, but I suspect those will be the topics of many of the questions we get into tonight. But I want to talk about school boards just for a second. A school board is really the ultimate contact sport. Some people think it's a team sport, but it becomes a contact sport now and then. The important thing is that each of us as an individual board member have no authority, no responsibility. We're elected to sit at a table with 6 other people and weigh the situations and the facts of what we have going on here and make the best decisions possible. Again, I thank you for being here tonight. I don't think there's a hockey game, or else I'd probably be there. I look forward to our conversation this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Venki?
Thank you. My name is Venki Palmand. I'm currently serving as the president of the Board of Education. I grew up in this district. I went to Blades, then went to Oakville Junior, and went to Oakville Senior, graduated in 1985. I then went on to Washington University, where I earned a degree in Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering. In my day job, I help run our own family-owned business. We're in the manufacturing industry, and we make parts for companies that build equipment or devices. And we've been in business now, I think, almost 30 years, so doing it for a long time. I think as an incumbent, I think a big part of this race will be about the record that I've had over the last 6 years. And one of the things I was able to get done early in my term is changing the grading system at the high schools. We now employ what we call weighted grades, where we incentivize students to take harder classes. AP Calculus, AP Physics, Chemistry, Biology, the dual credit classes. We incentivize students. We've raised the bar. My first couple of years, I only recall 1 national merit semifinalist that the district had. In the last 3 years, we've had 10 national merit finalists. I'm immensely proud of the accomplishments of those students and of the many others who've applied to Ivy League schools. We regularly have kids that get into, like last year, there was one that got into MIT. In the past, there's been some that got into Princeton. I know of one this year that was admitted to Georgetown. We've raised the bar on student achievement. Students are better prepared to enter college, and we've done it in a fiscally responsible manner. Our balances are much stronger now than they were when we first got elected, and with that, running out of time, I ask for your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Okay. Laurie? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, moderator, those involved in organizing the forum, good evening. Thank you for having the forum. My name is Lori Tragus, and back in mid-January, I made the final decision to run for a position on the Mehlville School District Board of Education. I am the proud wife of Ernie, grateful stepmother to Allison. I was born and raised in this district, attended Blades Elementary, Oakville Junior, and graduated from Oakville Senior High. I'm proud to say, I say it's a little sweet and humbling, but Blades is celebrating their 40th anniversary, and I was the freshman class as a kindergartner at that school. So 40 years have come and gone. I've been a certified court reporter since 1989, and I currently own and operate my own firm, Verbatim Reporting. My husband would tell you I'm completely honest and trustworthy. He would tell you when I make a commitment, you can be assured that I follow through on my promises. He would tell you I'm committed, focused, and diligent in every task I undertake. I would tell you that I love business, I thrive on hard work, I strive for excellence in my daily rigors of life, I value and cherish all my relationships, I love my community, and I love the success of children. It's truly the soft spot in my heart. Over the years, through my stepdaughter, I've been exposed to Clayton School District, Ladue School District, and Westminster Christian Academy. I've had firsthand knowledge of the challenge of educating this generation. I've seen their highs, their lows, and I've seen the challenges as it pertains to public education. The current law throughout the United States is FAPE, F-A-P-E. The law reads that each child in the U.S. is entitled to a free, appropriate, and public education. In theory, this means that we should be able to send our kids off with a KISS, board a bus, which delivers them to our local school where they read
You can
books.
finish. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, we should be able to send them off to school with no problems.
Okay.
No,
Okay, and you can finish on your last 2 minutes.
okay.
Okay, we'll start with Venki.
Okay.
And I will switch around so you're not always the last one or the first one or following the same person. This one comes from somebody who submitted a question online. I think it is very important for board members to be visible in the community, not just accessible via email and phone. What is your commitment to attending activities at all buildings throughout the year?
I've done that already. I go to many PTO meetings. I've done guest lectures in the AP Physics class at Oakville. I've visited a journalism classroom at Mehlville. I visited the one-to-one classrooms to see how that was working out. So I think my commitment is I will be visible and I'm open and accessible to the voters and to the public. If they have any concerns, they're certainly welcome to stop me at the bread company. I've had those conversations at the bread company, at grocery stores, so I'm always willing to listen.
Larry?
Well, I guess for the 6 years I've been here, I've tried to be the patron saint to the strings program. That's one of the first things I've tried to do, is I know they had issues and asked for volunteers for a committee, so I got on that. But I think more important, I go to football games, I go to basketball games, I go to drama. I go to the same type of cafe settings, but most of the time I just like to go to the buildings and just literally just walk around and talk to the principals and talk to the teachers just to see what the climate is. This is the business we're in, is the education of children, and I think the more time we spend in the schools and spend watching their successes and their hard work, I think it makes us better board members. I think we're much more sensitive to the decisions we make.
Lori?
I agree, of course, the PTO meetings, all the extracurricular activities, if it's through choir, the concerts, the games, but I agree with Larry. It is about being in the schools. It is about getting to know your audience, getting to know who you are serving, and unless you're in there in the trenches, you really don't know that.
Okay. Larry, how important is the role of parents as teachers and early childhood programming in our district?
I think it's essential. Unfortunately, it was one of the first things that was cut, I want to say 2 years ago, in the budgets. I'm fortunate enough my grandchildren have had a chance to be part of that. And just the awareness it gives the parents of their kids' strengths and weaknesses long before they get it in a kindergarten or even a preschool setting, I think is invaluable. The other thing I find interesting about it is the way it can kind of communicate the mission of the school district they're working with, to give really to help parents ease their way in and not have quite the culture shock when they first come in.
Laurie?
I think parents as teachers is very important because it gives the parents the tools to help their children get ready for their school setting.
Yeah, pretty much with that answer. We all know that early intervention is the key to getting students off on the right path when they get to be 3, 4, 5 and move into kindergarten, first grade, and beyond. So it's unfortunate that we wound up having to do some cuts in that program, but It's certainly a valuable part of the education we have here.
Okay. Lori?
Yes, ma'am.
If the district were to receive 5 to 10 million in new revenues from the state or other source, what would you do with this additional revenue?
Wow. So you're going to put the first money question to me? 5 to 10 million? Well, first of all, I'd have to take a look at the budget. I would to see where we were at. I would have to see if we had any shortfalls. I would also have to see if the best way that that money could be used, and that the people of the community should have a decision how to spend that money, or have that savings returned to them.
Vanky?
If it's a reoccurring source of revenue, I think I would try to do a couple things. One, reduce class sizes and improve teacher pay, and in conjunction with a longer school year. Because I think if it was a one-time 5 to 10 million, I think it'd be a lot harder to work with that. You might be able to do some increase in staff pay, you might be able to do some class reduction, but that kind of gets to the difference between a reoccurring source of revenue and a one-time source of revenue.
Larry?
I think the first thing I'd look at is early childhood. I would try and find a way to expand the program, not only what we have, but to reach out to more students. I think I'd also take a look at what could we do in the classrooms to maybe be a little more efficient, you know, an extra teacher aide, an extra helper, because I think Venky hit it on the head. If it's a recurring cost, you can't put it in to salaries necessarily, but you could put it into annual help to reduce the size of the classroom and make teaching even more effective than it is.
Okay. Venky? This question is from hundreds of district children who currently partake in choir, band, symphony, strings, and drama programs and classes. Please explain your position, for or against, on the funding of new auditorium construction. Please address your response to these children as well as those children who will partake in the programs and classes in the future. That's loaded.
I couldn't be more pleased with the construction of the auditorium, and I give Dr. Knost a lot of credit for that. So it's his vision to do something that Mehlville has never had before. And from what I understand, we're the only district in St. Louis County that doesn't have an auditorium. It's long overdue. I'm glad it's there, and it's not only the choir, but it's theater, band, and you'll excuse me, but this was never my area of interest in high school, so I'm probably talking as if it was a first to me. But I think this is a wonderful addition to our facilities. We're doing it within budget. There's been no tax increase needed to do this. We simply refinanced bonds that were paid at a much higher rate. We took advantage of the world we found ourselves in with decreasing interest rates and low construction costs, and we made a bold step forward. And I think this is wonderful for the students that will get to use it next year, and wonderful for the tens of thousands of students and parents who will get to see their kids perform at a great facility.
Larry?
I'm a choir parent. This is something I've looked at since the first day my kids started singing here. What I would tell the kids is, this is not a new idea. This started a long time ago, as far back as the early 90s. Every type of planning operation, and whether it was CAC, whether it was long-range planning, whether it was Compass, the need for a curricular space for performance was always identified. It's the equivalent of saying we don't need a lab for chemistry because we could use the study hall and put the chemicals on a table. This is the opportunity to mold their craft and also serve as an assembly area for the community and for our classroom teachers. So I would tell them patience and perseverance, and it's coming.
Okay.
Laurie?
I would say that, yeah, auditoriums are a wonderful, beautiful thing. Every child desires it, schools desire it. I would disagree. Not every school in the St. Louis metropolitan area county does have an auditorium. The challenge is how we went about attaining the auditorium. Of course, the refinance of the bonds came from a tax increase in 2000. However, at that time, the board also, they bumped up the budget over $21 million because of overruns that got pushed off on the tax money that was used for that refinance money. So now we're refinancing the money 10 years later, and it was not approved for the auditorium. The auditoriums are great, they're beautiful, we all have it, but was the money allocated for that? That's the question and the concern that I have, and I think that the community has too. I also just a month ago, or a month and a half ago, visited the Academic Olympics, okay.
Larry, what is your stance on the teaching of evolution in biological science classes?
Well, evolution is part of the state curriculum, first of all, and that's the state school board's responsibility to set that facet of the curriculum. We have the opportunity locally to modify our curriculum. Evolution is recognized as a theory, but it's one of the fundamental theories of science. If you look at your AP classes, look at the college entrance exams, look at the basic structure of academic teaching in the science fields, you'll find that evolution is a basic part of it.
Laurie?
Yes, evolution is one theory. As public education, all theories should be represented to represent all the families in the community.
Venki?
Yeah, I'm not a biologist, but my best understanding is evolution is not only what is required by the state, but also it is a great explanation of how life has changed over the thousands, millions of years. So I'm comfortable with what we teach in the classrooms.
Laurie, if the Mehlville School District were to add days to the school calendar, should teachers be fairly compensated?
Yes, they should, and I think that if there are going to be days that are going to be added, that it should be funded by the state. And I'm not so convinced that adding days is necessarily, I think it's more of a, I don't think it's necessarily a necessity.
Larry?
Well, there's actually I think there's three components to this. You know, we're talking about extra days, which gives us more opportunity for contact, but the other part of that is classroom efficiency. Are there things that we do that kind of inhibit teachers from having the time to have contact time? The third piece of it, and the part that really slows it down, is the summer vacation. It's that 3-month lag. So while adding days would be an important part of this, it's not the only answer. In terms of compensation, I think if you change somebody's working conditions and ask them to work 3% more, then I think there's 3% more needed in compensation. I think it's part of a basic discussion.
Venki?
Yes, as most people know, I am in favor of increasing the length of the school year, and I think there should be hopefully a path to get there with additional compensation. Eventually, Mehlville has to continue to attract and retain young families. We want to be a destination district, and I think it's going to be hard to do that if we continually let people know that we are running at 174 days, which is essentially at the state minimum. The national average is higher, it's 180. Other nations go longer. So hopefully we can find a path to get there that's mutually agreeable.
Okay, this is a little bit related to what we had talked about a minute ago. Larry, what role should music and art education play in the Mehlville School District?
Well, I'm kind of a biased source, having 5 choir kids that come over and see me once in a while, especially when they want money. I think it's critical, if you look at at least what literature I've looked at, is the correlation between musical skill and academic development. It's closely correlated. To give somebody the opportunity to express themselves in a way different than math or science or some other venue can only help their overall scholastic development. When I go into classrooms and I look at like the kindergartners and first graders and second graders, music is a common theme that they use to teach the math skills and English skills and teach, and just how to get along. So I think it's fundamental.
Venki?
Yeah, definitely. Music and band that weren't my areas of interest in high school, but I do know that anytime you can get students involved, whether it be those types of extracurriculars or tennis or football or baseball, anything you can do to keep students engaged and active will come back and help them in their academic path. Of the kids that we have at both high schools, if you look at those who are participating in extracurriculars, they tend to outperform kids who are just go to school and not do anything else like chess or other activities. So I definitely think music, band, all those play a large role in our student achievement.
Lori?
Yes. I think they're important also, and I think that it's great if they want to be scholar musicians, but I think first and foremost, our kids need to be carrying a full book of bags home every night, because the education portion of their high school experience is going to take them to further their education so they can compete with this 21st century economy.
Okay. Lori, would you see your position on the Mehlville School Board as a political position, a corporate position, an education position, or something else?
It's absolutely not a political position. It's truly for our commitment to serve this community and to serve the children in this community, and for our passion and commitment, and to not turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to public education for the community that raised me through it.
Venki?
Definitely not a political position. I think the job is basically your education, your work background. The goal is to do the best job you can based on where you come from, your experiences, to do the best job you can for the benefit of the students and staff of the district over the long term. So the goal should always be not just what we're trying to accomplish tomorrow, what's the most we can get tomorrow or the next year, but what's best for the school district over the long term.
Larry?
I think it's a corporate position, first of all, because each of us bring in a certain set of skills and vocations. And that takes a very corporate meaning, because when you get those 7 different viewpoints together, you tend to get a pretty decent synthesis and a pretty good idea of all the bases being covered. We're not political by nature, but you have to have political skills, because when 7 people sit down to discuss anything, there's a certain amount of tact, diplomacy, argument, debate, whatever you want to call it. So you have to be a political animal in the sense that you have to be able to express your position, you know, and deal with and try and find a middle ground and come up with a solution.
Okay. Venki? Classroom size is often a concern of parents. How many kids are too many in an elementary, middle, and high school classroom?
Well, I think we know the MSIP standards. Those aren't ideal situations, 25 K through 2. I think it's 27 through 4, and maybe like 30 through 5. I think smaller class sizes are definitely the goal. Unfortunately, at this time, that gets to the idea of a reoccurring expense versus a one-time expense. I guess in the broad sense, we would all like to have smaller class sizes, but it's probably not feasible at this time until something changes with our revenue stream.
Lori?
Okay. I think this goes to the issue of wants versus needs with a budget and how we allocate those funds. I'm a very large proponent of small class sizes. I've seen that difference in the experience I've noticed with my daughter's education. I think elementary, you're looking at 18, and junior high and high school, you're looking at 12 students per teacher.
Larry?
I think class size is important. I know what we've tried to do here is we're pretty much running at the MSIP maximums, because we've invested money in other places with character programs, interventions, other services in the classroom to kind of offset that size. I think the other piece of this we have to talk about, though, is the quality of instruction we get in the classroom, and that's the idea of supplementing. It doesn't avoid some of the recurring costs, but it keeps it in terms of an annual cost that you can manage, you know, whether you maintain the position again or not.
Lori? How would you fund security upgrades for the Mehlville School District?
Well, I think first of all, we have to identify what really is the solution to security. We see a lot of things, and we've seen that things that haven't worked, and we need to take an overhaul look at what school security, what is going to work, before you can really determine how you're going to fund it or what the budget really calls for. I know recently it was mentioned, I think Dr. Canos mentioned this at the town hall meeting, that they were considering having substitute teachers that are policemen. If that's the case, they would be trained for a situation of an attack. but it'd be a paid position, they'd be a substitute. So I think that we need to think outside of the box, but first and foremost, we need to make certain that we know that our kids are secure in our school, and how are we going to go about that?
Larry?
I think security upgrades have to be part of your basic budget, because I can't think of anything more important than security of the children that we're trusted with. There's several pieces to that. There's obviously the hardware that we have to control door entry and the cameras and all of that. But we've also got the relationship we have with the county police. We're really fortunate with having the 3rd and 4th district this close and the working relationship we have. We also have the advantage of, for instance, we have installed, I forget how long ago, locks on the doors to make each room secure. Lindbergh is going to have to spend, correct me if I'm wrong, about $200,000 to change the locks in their buildings to conform with what we've already done. Again, we forget how much help the county police have been in terms of analysis and synchronization, and I know that Dr. Knost has talked to us about his meetings with Captain Fitch of the county police, so it has to be part of the basic budget.
Thank you.
Depending on what we decide to do, we can probably fund a lot of security upgrades right within our budget. We added locks at the high school where we had to buzz in. We didn't have that before. We added 4 police officers. We had that flexibility in the wake of what happened in Connecticut because our budget's in good shape. So if we decide there's more to do, such as adding more police officers, I think we've got the capacity to do it within budget.
Laurie, educating children is the main job of a school district. How much do you know about the Mehlville curriculum, and what is your opinion about it?
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to look at their curriculum. I haven't sat down with the board to see that. And just by their comments they made tonight about evolution, and that's the only theory represented, I would have to challenge that and take a look at all the curriculum. So I would take issue with that.
Venki?
I've looked into our curriculum. I've visited classrooms. I think we have a strong curriculum. We do prepare students to be successful in college. We offer all kinds of classes in AP Chemistry, next year, AP Physics, AP Biology. We're also offering classes in robotics next year. We have a strong curriculum, and I'm comfortable with what we have, but at the same time, I think complacency, as Dr. Knost has mentioned before, is a bad thing, and we always want to strive to get better, and we always want to make sure that our students are as best prepared as possible as they enter college or work.
Larry?
Well, I have the advantage as an incumbent of having seen curriculum books over the last 6 years and see them get much more refined in terms of being able to tell us this is why it's changing, here are the grade level expectations that it's honed in to do, and what the pluses and minuses were of the curriculum choices they made. But there's another piece to this too, because there's a new approach, a new set of standards called Common Core, state standards, which are changing kind of the ground rules, the what questions of how curriculum is going to be implemented and set up at the local level. So I think it's important for a board member to know what's going on at a state level and even have the chance to comment on them like I did, to understand what it's going to do to your curriculum down here, so you have a better idea of what changes will be coming.
Okay, Larry? How would you encourage home buyers with young children to purchase a home within the district and send their children to Mehlville District schools daily? In other words, use this allotted time to sell a young family on what Mehlville schools can offer them. Go.
First thing I do, I take them down to the kindergarten room, let them meet their teacher. I'm assuming it's a young family, they're going to start with a kindergartner or first grader. Then I would turn one of our building principals loose on them, because they have an infectious way of recruiting a lot better than I probably could. Then I drive them to the auditorium site and show what we've been able to do progressively. I would take them over to the buses and say, these are the safest things your children are going to be on. And from there, I'd just take them anywhere they wanted to go and answer their questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, in addition to encouraging them to visit the local school, I would certainly let them know that Mehlville is a top 5% district in the state, and we outperform 95% of other school districts in the entire state. Starting next year, we'll offer 19 advanced placement classes, and I believe that either puts us first or second in St. Louis County. I would tell them their students can not just succeed here, but they can thrive. And I'll tell them on top of all that, we have among the lowest tax rates in the area. I think Ladue might be lower, but we're the best buy for the dollar anywhere in St. Louis County, and that's encourage them to come here for that reason.
Laurie?
Okay. I would encourage them that they're the heart and soul of this community, that they're good people, that their children will be going to school with, that the parents support their students. I would also really celebrate the dedication of the hardworking teachers. It's the one thing you always hear among this district of how hard the teachers work despite what the per pupil expenditure is. I would just encourage them that it is a great place to live, and it's a great community, it's a wholesome community, and it's a balanced place to live, and that we would be glad to have them part of it.
Okay, Venki? This is 3 parts.
Okay.
Do you support tuition-free, full-day kindergarten for Mehlville School District?
Okay.
Do you think failure to provide this service will impact home values compared to districts that do offer tuition-free, full-day kindergarten? And what sources can you cite that support your position?
I absolutely support tuition-free, full-day kindergarten. It's the equivalent, like I've talked about before, written about before, it's the equivalent of 87 additional instructional days for 5-year-olds, or 500 additional hours. We all know that early intervention is a key to driving success as the kids progress through 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. It makes the job of every classroom teacher easier when their kids are better prepared that come from the grade below. Failure to do early full-day kindergarten, yes, I think that would be a detriment. We're a little bit late to the game. As wonderful as this is, we are one of, now there's only 3 districts in the St. Louis area that don't have it. So we managed to accomplish so much without the full day, but I think it would be a detriment if we didn't have it, and you'll have to repeat your last question.
What sources can you cite that support your position?
Well, there's 520-something districts in the state of Missouri, and all the K through 8s have gone to it. We're the only ones that haven't. So not necessarily that everybody who does it is right, but research has shown that that's the way to go, is the early intervention.
Larry?
Yes, I've supported wholeheartedly. Yes, we were, but Lindbergh hasn't gone there yet, so we have a hope. I think right now, the fact that we've made this commitment to it, I think to pull back, not only would it impact homeowners, but I think it would tarnish our reputation, that to make this type of a step and then back off of it, I think would show indecision that I don't think we want to demonstrate. In terms of sources, there's a couple I can think of. I've had a chance to go to a couple of early childhood seminars, and they always talk about the bridge into full-day kindergarten, and they talk about, it's not so much the academics, but it's the fact that there's reinforcement for the academic activities. The only thing I've read on it, there was something I read off one of the Gates studies off of their website, but I can't quote which one it was or which page or anything like that.
Laurie?
I support it from the sense that I understand it's a competitive issue. I understand because other districts are offering it, you want your district to be offering it. I do take exception with the fact that, personally, I know that all parents, I know most of our homes are 2-income homes and most people are working, but I think as much time as that child can be at home with a parent is part of their just their development, their nurturing. I mean, they have, 12 years ahead of them in the education world. So I applaud the parents who try to make it where they can only send their kids to half day. But I also would say that we are funding that. The taxpayers are funding that full day kindergarten also.
Larry? What current expenditures do you think can either be reduced or eliminated?
Reduced or eliminated? Well, the obvious one people would talk about would be transportation. That would seem to be the most visible. That would it be cheaper to farm that out to somebody? I know the last time we looked at it, that wouldn't work because it's cheaper for us to maintain and operate and have control. So the next biggest thing on our budget is probably personnel. We already have larger class sizes. We're at the max. We're still doing fine academically. So if we do any type of cuts there, that's not the area. So about the only third category left is, do you look at extracurricular activities and after school, and you find out there's not enough money there to make that type of a cut. So I'm not sure there's any area we would cut. And I kind of referenced that back to, I think it was 3 years ago. We went through an exercise to pull $4.8 million out of the budget. And that was an exercise, and we had to take that all over the place. There was no one area.
Laurie?
I would have to see the budget firsthand to see where the cuts that can be made. And I think, again, you have to make a decision of a board over wants over needs. Every school district wants as many wants as they want, but what are the true needs of the district for the children to succeed in this generation, in this economy, and in this century?
Thank you.
There's probably not a whole lot of places we can cut at this point. We're pretty much at the MSIP maximums in terms of class sizes, especially at the elementary level. But the good news is we really don't need to cut anything at this point. Our budget's in good shape. Our balances are high. So another area people generally point to is administrators, but we're also pretty thinly staffed in administrators as well. A few years ago, I remember they did a survey and they found that we had one administrator to about 300 students. And since that time, I know we've made some cuts at the administrative level. So I suspect that we were already the most lean district in St. Louis County back then, probably even more so today. So there really isn't a lot of places to cut, nor right now is there a need to cut because we're in good shape financially.
Laurie, as a school board member, the majority of the people you represent do not have children in Mehlville schools. How will that affect the decisions that you make?
Well, I think that's one of the strong areas that I really bring to this district. Growing up in this community, I know the struggle that we have in supporting one another as each family in our area makes a determination on what their educational choices are best for their child. First, we need to be transparent. We need to build our community's trust. I mean, honestly, I go back to, if you're going to make decisions about where you're going to spend large portions of the money, make sure that everybody knows where it's come from. Tell them you're getting money from refinance. Make good choices that we have. Find ways to come together. Many of our district private schools use our services here for their special needs of their children. We need to work in this direction. It's always been a challenge here for the 40 years that I've grown up, and we need to bridge that gap. They need to see the great things that we do and pull us all together.
Thank you.
Yeah, decisions we make as a board, I think, are primarily focused on what's best for the students over the long term, whether it's adding technology or building an auditorium, tennis courts. So I would say to the non-parents, in kind of a unique situation, all three of us up here, none of us have kids currently in the district. I would think the goal is to make this a strong district because you want Mehlville to be a place where people come and live. If you don't have a strong school system, then it becomes probably not a place that's desirable to locate. So our decisions, what's right for the students, will eventually be right for all the non-parents as well.
Larry?
Well, I think when we're elected, we represent everyone, the 65,000 people who are eligible to vote in this school district. If we can't touch them directly because we provide services to their children, we certainly have to demonstrate fiscal responsibility because every one of them contributes financially to our success. But there are other issues like, I mean, we administer Title I money. We're kind of the pass-through, so we have contact. We interact with the private parochial schools. We also have the opportunity, you know, those of us that work in other organizations like the YMCA board or coaching or the foundation or the things like that, we come into contact with people that don't come from this district. So I think we get a better idea from them of how we need to present ourselves and how we need to demonstrate our abilities.
Laura, you brought up the word transparency, so I'll ask this question. We continue to hear the word transparency used when describing what candidates wish to bring to the board. what do you think is being withheld from the public?
Well, I think the fact that when you pull up and you see a sign that says the auditorium was paid at no taxpayer increase or no new bond is false. And, you know, we're smarter than that in this community. And when you dig a little deeper, you'll find out that that money came from Prop P, that it was a refinance, and that we had no option as the public to where that money went to. I think that's not being transparent, and I think that's where the breakdown is, because if you can't be transparent with us, you're never going to build the trust of this community. It's about building trust. And again, that's an example of not quite accurate information.
Larry?
Well, I think transparency is when you make decisions in front of everyone, when you bring up the topics, do the pros and cons, and make the decision. No backroom deals, no scratch my back. What the 7 of us decide in public is what we do. Sometimes, even when you're transparent, some ideas or some concepts are difficult to explain. When you don't change your tax rate, then you're really not causing any tax issues. Some of the financial things we do in terms of refinancing, that's because we have an expert in our CFO that helps us do that. I'm not sure sometimes we understand the first time he tells us, but by the second time we do. But I think transparency is explaining what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and completing it. People may not always agree with the outcome, but they'll know how you got there.
Thank you.
I feel we have been transparent with the public. We have board members that go through our warrants, our invoices, so to speak, and question even the smallest amount. So I think the administration is definitely careful with where they spend their money, and everything we purchase or spend is listed for public to take a look at. And in terms of the auditorium and how that was put together, when we say that it was a no tax increase and it was all published in the local media, we didn't go back and ask the taxpayers for any more money. So if you go back and look at our tax rates, all we did was follow the Hancock Amendment, and in some cases we rolled up, in some cases we rolled back. But to say this was something different, it's just not true. We wound up able to build within current budget, and that's how we say there's no tax increase, and it's all been published in the local media for anyone to go back and visit and review.
Venki, how many hours do you anticipate putting into this volunteer job per week?
Gosh, when I first started, I was told it was like 6 to 8. I probably easily do that much. And I think this job can be what you make of it. And just as my time visiting classrooms or speaking to teachers, speaking to parents, it's something I enjoy doing. So I would think at a minimum, you should come to various events and visit classrooms. Just sit in the classroom and watch the teacher as she or he goes about their daily activities. I would think at a minimum, you should at least do 10 hours a week. And you wind up talking to other board members, try to get their perspectives on things. There's a lot to this job, and I think to be effective, you definitely have to be visible and go to different places in the district.
Laurie?
Okay. Of course, whatever it takes to impact the students' academic success so they do have a chance so they have the same opportunities that all students in the St. Louis metropolitan area have. So whatever that number is, I'm here to do it, and also to build those relationships with this community, folks. I mean, this has been a challenge, a lifelong district challenge, and unless we can all come together with a synergistic effect, we really need to seize on this opportunity to make us stronger.
Larry?
Well, I'd say I average about 6 to 8 hours a week, and that doesn't include any time, board meetings or board preparation, and it doesn't include the time I spend up in Jefferson City or up in Columbia working with the Missouri School Board Associations as a region representative.
Larry, the Mehlville District is putting a lot of effort into character education. Is that a wise use of instructional time?
I think the answer is yes. And I say that because going through the schools, and especially what we saw out in Connecticut, the ability of children to be able to have a better idea of how to interact with each other, to understand the value of truth and comradeship and discipline and knowing how to protect each other, how to care for each other. I think it's a valuable service.
Venki?
Absolutely. I think Character Ed has been a great addition to our school district over the last several years. Give you an example. I was talking to an English teacher, a high school English teacher, and she told me she first started teaching in about the year 2000. And the kids she had back then, even the same class level, which is like an introductory class, I think, that had some difficulty with reading, the students that she has today, in the same circumstances she had in the year 2000, are much better behaved, much easier to deal with. So Character Ed is one of those long-term ideas that I've talked about. It's doing things right in first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way up. So when these kids reach high school, the teachers have a lot easier time working with them. And so what this teacher was telling me is basically her job is a lot easier because the kids are better behaved. It's hard to put a price on that. It's hard to put a connection between that and academic achievement. But just instinctively, you know that if you don't have less battles to fight in the classroom, I think that's the way to go. So yes, it's been a wonderful addition.
Lori?
Well, of course, we can all agree that character is a good thing. The question is, how much do we allocate for it? Are the programs that we're choosing, are they successful? Are we getting the accomplishments? And I know there are a lot of character schools in Mehlville School District, so they're doing a good job. But how are we partnering with the parents? I think it's really interesting that we talk about full-day kindergarten, all this early childhood, but 20, 30 years ago, we weren't having to have character education. So I think, again, it's an area that needs to be explored, and we need to make sure that we are partnering with our parents to make sure that the character is coming from the home and how we can support that.
This is addressed to you, Laurie, but anybody can answer it. Recently in the call, you stated that tuition-free kindergarten is not really free.
Right.
Can you further explain this response?
Well, I've learned in life, my dad taught me a long time ago that nothing is free. So if it's free, sign up for it. Basically, we are funding it. As taxpayers, all of us, our hardworking money is going to the state to fund all-day kindergarten.
Venki, do you want to respond?
Yeah, definitely. I think what probably has been lost in some of the translation, what free tuition free means is we're not charging our parents for the full-day service. It's being paid for by the state. But what people probably missed is for the last 10, 15, 20 years, however long full-day kindergarten's been going on, we've already been paying for this. Your tax dollars have gone to Jefferson City, and you've paid for someone else's kids in outstate Missouri to have tuition-free full-day kindergarten. So we've already taken care of the entire state. And for us to finally get in on this deal, I think it's wonderful. And so what that means is the daily adjusted payments from the state will probably differ by a few pennies per student across the state per day. And so it's a smart move on our part, and it is truly free because we were elected, or was, and hope to be elected again, to represent Mehlville taxpayers. If you have an issue with how the state is being run, there are other elected offices that you need to talk to. But this is truly free for our taxpayers.
Larry?
And I think the way that Venki explained it with the average daily attendance really is the crux of the issue, because all of our money goes into, at some point in time, ends up in the $3 billion that gets funded for education in the state. We now have more kids, a higher number, and we draw back and we get our share back.
Larry, what is your position on Missouri school funding formula?
The Missouri school funding formula is a mathematical nightmare. It started out as an attempt to balance urban costs and rural costs, and that's because rural property tends to be valued much lower relative to urban property. So they got going with this thing, and they put in a bias for average daily attendance and for agricultural, how much you're charging. Bottom line was, when they got done, it was like a 0.85 multiplier for rural and like a 1.2 multiplier for the cities. And they said there's not enough money for the counties, so they made it 1 and 1.11. So it's basically a bad formula. I think the long-term issue is to try and fund on a head count rather than an allocation model like they use now.
Vanky?
Yeah, the school funding formula is pretty complicated. I'm not sure Mehlville really receives our fair share. We're kind of stuck in a difficult spot. We don't have the industrial base that, say, perhaps some of the northern districts do if they've got Boeing in their district. Of course, one district had Chrysler, they don't anymore. And we don't have a lot of office buildings like Clayton does. So unfortunately, the funding formula at the state views us differently than we view ourselves, and we only get about 14% of our budget from the state of Missouri. I wish that were different, wish that were higher. For example, the Fox School District gets 40% of their budget from the state. So I would certainly like to see a more equitable funding formula and give us a little bit more from the state, but I'm not sure that's going to happen in the near future because the state is already unable to fund the formula as it is. So we'll have to continue to do what we've always done, and that's do the best job we can with the resources we have.
Lori?
Yes, if you talk to anybody down in Jeff City, they always say, oh, do you have about an hour that we can go over that? So even there is, nobody seems to come up with the same answer twice. What I will say about any source of money is usually whoever barks the loudest usually manages to find it. And so I have to question Mehlville School District. You know, my opponents here have been serving for over 6 years, and the per pupil expenditure has only gone up maybe 14% compared to other districts, including Hancock, that have gone up 31%. So per pupil, we're looking at possibly $1,200 over 600 years. I believe there is money to be found, and I think where we are at Mehlville School District, we have to, you know, just hound it till we can get some more money out of the state.
Vanky? There's a current debate in Jefferson City regarding the Common Core standards. In your opinion, whose job is it to define statewide curriculum standards, and what is the role of the local board as it relates to the curriculum?
I think from what I understand, a number of states got together and helped define what they called the Common Core in order to try to level the playing field for students from across the country. But regardless of what is set by or accepted by DESE, Department of Elementary Secondary Education, my understanding is we still have a lot of flexibility on what we do in our district. And the goal of Common Core is essentially students being college and career ready by the time they leave. And I think that's definitely a worthy goal. Like I said, we have flexibility, so there'll still be local control. So certainly it's not that much of a top-down approach as one might expect.
Laurie?
Yes, for those that aren't aware of Common Core in the room, what I will tell you, it's going to be a top-down federal government control of our curriculum. It's going to be driven by the public sector, for-profit consulting firms. Though we will lose the local control over our curriculum. The technology issues, the cost of the technology to do the reports cause great concern to what the school district budgets are. And even more concerning, the government, it's a student tracking database. They won't just record our student achievements, they're going to record their cultural awarenesses, their appreciation for diversity, empathy, perspective, taking trust and service orientation. This is a serious issue, folks, on Common Core, and Rockwood School District and many of the other school districts have already sent information home to our schools, and I don't think that our district parents realize that Common Core is coming down the pike.
Larry?
Well, Common Core was a collaboration between the commissioners of education and the governors, and I think it actually started the National Governors Conference, of wanting to have a way to do measurements across states, because we'll see, well, Wisconsin does this or Nebraska does this. So the idea was to craft a set of standards, which are guidelines, which is like an outline. It's the what question. And it was to give states an idea of the expectations, grade level, et cetera, that they should go for. One of the interesting things is Missouri probably has the second best set of standards, the Show Me standards, second only to Massachusetts. One of the issues was we had to give back some ground to conform with the general approach, but we were able to raise the bar in some others. So what this does, this gives us a common vehicle for comparison. In terms of the technology issues, they won't, it's like most technologies. They'll size it at one size, and they're going to find out they're going to need more. And yeah, there'll be funding issues on it, but it's one thing they'll have to do if they want to fit the measures and go across all the states.
Okay. Venki, it's been said by many that what is best for the children is also best for the taxpayers. Do you agree or disagree with the statement? Why or why not?
I would agree, and that's, again, over the long term. If we do what's right for 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds today, then they will be better equipped to be going into the elite colleges and universities or trade schools. So over the long term, yes, absolutely, it's the right thing to do to support them, but it's also good for the entire community. So it goes back to say, I'd go back to say, yes, it is good for the taxpayers to have a well-funded, successful public education district.
Larry?
Well, I think it's investments in children, I think, are good for the taxpayer. I think the conundrum, if you will, is being able to demonstrate the value of hard-earned taxpayer dollars going in here. We can do that in several ways. We can look at attendance rates. We can publish test scores. I think Project Engage is probably one of the best things we've ever done because it puts the kids back into the community. And I think it gives that hands-on experience that people can see what the kids are doing, how they converse, how they react. So I think anything you do to educate your workforce, your population, is good. The challenge is how do you demonstrate that while you're on the journey?
Laurie?
Can you repeat that question?
I think. It's been said by many that what's best for the children is also best for the taxpayers. Do you agree or disagree with the statement? Why or why not?
It's a little confusing because I'm thinking of an adult who's working and a child who's learning. So, of course you want everybody to be a win situation. I mean, you want taxpayers not to have their paychecks depleted at the end of the day, and you want your children to have the best educational opportunity possible. Not always, money really shouldn't be the prerequisite for great education. It should be great ideas and great efforts that make that child successful.
Laurie, this is addressed to you, and then they ask the same of the two of you. Laurie, every year for the past 10 years, Mehlville has been audited twice as much as is required by law. Every year, they've received a rating of unqualified. As the former treasurer of the Tesson Ferry Republican Club, what's your opinion of this rating, as well as the overall financial health of the Mehlville School District?
Well, first of all, I was not a treasurer of the Republican Club, so that information is not correct. And what I will say about audits, if you look at the recent news about the Rockwood audit, how important audits really are. I mean, one of the board members just recently resigned because of their affiliation with a construction company, and that company was receiving $1.2 million in overpayments. He ultimately did resign. So, yeah, I think audits are necessary because it keeps the board and the people making the decisions to hire people and all the financials makes everybody accountable.
Venki?
Yeah, the state requires an audit every 2 years. We've been getting an audit every year, and I like that. I like the fact that a third party comes in and looks at our books and makes sure that if there's a payment made, then that tracks back to an invoice and why that invoice was there in the first place, who authorized the purchase, just a paper trail. They'll also advise us on what to be careful with, what not to do. And credit cards are always a source of concern, and we get opinions from them regarding that as well. So we received what they call the unqualified opinion. I think it's technical terms. It's the best opinion you can get from an auditor. So I'm comfortable with the systems we have in place, and our record has shown that. We have board members, like I mentioned, question different purchases, and usually that goes back to something that's necessary, and it can be tracked back. So we have a good accounting system in place, and I'm happy to have the audit every year, and like I said, we do things in an open way.
Larry?
Well, I think the audits are another way of demonstrating transparency, is to let an independent third party who's trained in financial forensics, for lack of a better word, and to be able to come back and say, with no skin in the game, that what you're doing is not only correct, but it meets all standards that they are evaluating you on, and the unqualified speaks for itself.
Okay. Venki, what is your stance on direct marketing of harmful products such as soft drink beverages, snack foods, etc., to offset the cost of the district's operating budget? Do you agree with risking the overall health of impressionable minor-aged students versus asking the community for more funds? How would you reconcile this with the district's wellness policy?
Well, we do have a wellness policy, wellness committees. I certainly wouldn't want to encourage kids to drink sodas or eat salty foods. So that's something that the Wellness Committee talks about and does. I think money is obviously an important part of this district, but I wouldn't sell one in order to get the other. So I wouldn't get additional revenues just so we risk kids not being healthy.
Laurie?
We should find healthy alternatives in those vending machines. I mean, we are the child's caretaker for a minimum of 8 hours, if not more, while they're away from their home. So we need to make sure that we are offering those. There's no reason we can't do both. We can earn money through that, but make sure that the health food is in those vending machines.
Larry?
Well, the federal guidelines have had a lot to do with the reduction in soft drinks and sugar treats and things like that in our vending machines. And it's kind of a direct match to what we've seen in the cafeteria itself, with the more emphasis on vegetables and breads and things like that. You have kind of the tension between the parent volunteer groups trying to raise money, the concession stands. That's a part of their commerce. But as from a school district's perspective, I think we're tied into wellness now, both in terms of law and I think in terms of good practice.
Okay, we're going to end with this question because you've been going at it for more than an hour.
Okay.
And then you can have your 2
It
minutes
seems
at
like
the
a
end.
minute.
You want to do more?
No.
I have a lot of questions. Okay, Larry, how do you plan to make Mehlville schools a better place for students to learn?
I think we'll make them a better place to learn. I think it starts in the classroom. I think one of our most important issues is maintaining highly qualified teachers. We have kind of a lull now with the way the economy is. We don't see a lot of movement. But I think we have to make sure that when that happens, we are compensating and rewarding and enriching our teachers as best we can. Because the two common denominators in successful student achievement is a good classroom teacher and a parent that cares. So that gets back to the parents as teachers question. The more we can do as a district to put information and services out into the home before the kids come in, and then that ties into early childhood. So it all starts with the early child. That's what I do.
Venki?
Yeah, definitely to make Mehlville a good place, it would start with the qualified classroom teachers. I believe we've got something like 75% of our teachers have master's degrees or higher. We've had very low turnover the last few years. I think another important factor of that is continuity. In the last few years, we've had about 3% teacher turnover, not counting retirements. And I think that leads to the continuity of the classroom as opposed to getting new teachers all the time. I think that would be key. I'd also like to see us fully fund technology maybe one day with maybe smart boards. Right now, a lot of our technology is purchased by PTOs, so perhaps technology in the form of smart boards, document cameras, laptops, I think are all tools that teachers can use to do a better job in the classroom.
Okay, Laurie?
Yes. This is really near to me because this is one of the reasons why I'm not going to turn my back on public education. I mean, recently, our total academic achievement, children in our school are 40 to 45% below proficient. That is concerning to me. You know, we have there are great kids who are AP, they are scholar athletes, they are scholar musicians, they do all those great things, but what about the kids in the middle, folks? These are the kids that if we don't reach now, they are not going to have any chance for their future. They are not going to have a destination. And I think we need to partner with our parents, and for the parents that are able to be involved with their children, I think they need to look around and adopt a child that they can come alongside of and help them.
Okay, take a breath.
Because I want to be first.
And Laurie, you get to be first.
Okay.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. Let me just take a little sip real quick. All right, so I'll follow up on that. Although we can agree hard work is being done by many of the educators, the students, despite those efforts, as I just mentioned, we are 40 to 45% of our children are below proficient. This is unacceptable. We face many challenges with this generation, not only economically but socially. We must agree that it's necessary to look ahead and intentionally prepare our children for what they will face. Anything less than that should be acceptable to us. If we are not realistic, folks, our children will not be able to compete with the best St. Louis metropolitan area produces. The competition is much too great. We must make the choices that will advance these goals. We must be fiscally responsible. We must be sensitive in how we proceed to accomplish the needs of our district. We all want everything. I understand that. We will never have the tax rate of Clayton or Ladue. This does not discourage me, however, folks, because money should not be a prerequisite for great things. Great ideas and great efforts should be. If that was the predecessor to great education, then our children would be relegated to the bottom. My promise to you is not to complain about what we don't have, but to do great things with the resources we do have. You know, our families, generation after generations, call this South County a home. And they do that because of the balanced place that we live, folks. You know, Clayton and Ladue, they can all talk about the money that they spend for their children, but there is something that they can never attain, and that is the heart and soul of the great people of the Mehlville School District. So I ask for your vote on April 2nd. I ask for your neighbors, your people, folks. It is really serious. There's a lot of competition out here, and we need to look ahead with a great vision to how we can make this happen for our kids.
Ranky?
I don't have any prepared remarks, but I'll just talk a little bit about my record over the last 6 years, starting with the weighted grades that I got started back in 2007, which I think has really driven students to take harder classes at the high school level. I think it's played a role in us having 10 National Merit finalists over the last 3 years. We've had students get admitted to MIT, Princeton, I believe one got admitted to Stanford. That is an enormous sense of pride for me, having served 6 years and hoping to serve 3 more. I think we need to continually push to get better facilities, better student achievement, smaller class sizes if possible. Over the last 2 years, we've accomplished a great number of things, including the district's first ever auditorium, tennis courts, all without a tax increase, within budget. And solar energy, which I started working on back in 2007, but it finally became a reality just recently. The solar panels that were installed at 5 schools will not only save us money, but will reduce our carbon footprint and hopefully inspire a first or second or third grader to think about alternative forms of energy. I'll tell you a neat story. I hope I have time to do it. I did a guest lecture in AP Physics on alternative forms of energy several years ago. I came back a month later, and the student in the class came up to me and showed me a magazine article of another form of alternative energy that I hadn't heard of. I wish I remember that student's name. I don't know what he did. I think he went to Rolla, but that was an amazing moment for me, that the students coming and teaching me something that I didn't know. And I would hope with the solar energy, that's what it's about, inspiring students to do something, and in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, come back and invent something that perhaps gets us to lower dependence on foreign fuels. We are a top 5% school district. We outperform 95% of school districts across the state. Our balances are in good shape. Was around 6 or 7% when I first got elected. Now we're at 22%. We're in solid financial shape. We're improving academics. We've got character education on the way. Mehlville School District's headed in the right direction, and I ask for your vote on April 2nd.
Larry?
Well, first of all, let me thank Kathy for your moderation and for everyone's patient attention to what I think we tried to say tonight. Just one comment and then a couple of closing remarks. One of the difficult things about the map testing and the map format, is it oftentimes gets confused with the way No Child Left Behind is out, which kind of leaves everyone feeling that if you're not proficient, it's a pass-fail type of grade. If you look at map, if you look at from basic and up, our numbers are phenomenal, and that's the way it's intended to be. It's not like No Child Left Behind, where everybody was above average, which is kind of an insult to any statistician. So I want to throw that out. I want to talk about the great things we've done in this district, and I want to move it from the future tense to the present tense, because it's here and it's now. Academics, we're in the top 5% of this state. and we're doing it on a shoestring. We're doing it for $1,100 less than the state average. And this average is based on very small rural high schools that don't spend a lot of money at all. We have the second lowest property taxes in St. Louis County. We have budget balances that allow us to make decisions about children's safety, make decisions about full-day kindergartens without fear of economic disaster. And last but not least, we're working on a tax levy that was established in 1986, and we're still working miracles. A couple of last comments. If you're looking for someone who believes in discipline, research, and decision-making, that's how I try to operate. I believe there's one fundamental question in this election, one and one only. If you believe the district is in better shape than it was 6 years ago, which I believe, then I believe you elect Vanke and I as the incumbents to continue this mission. I hope for your support, and I look forward to seeing you all turn out and vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
You're all very quiet.